Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. And welcome to Tenzing and Teradici's webinar, PCoIP Pixel Perfection. So just run through the agenda quickly. So I'll go through a few quick housekeeping points. I'll then run through an introduction to Tenzing and our partnership with Teradici. Then I'll hand over to Andrew at Teradici, and he'll go through PCoIP technology and its applications of remote working. We'll then finish up with a Q&A. So just brief housekeeping points. We are recording this webinar, so it will be available at the end. It'll be on the Teradici website, and we'll be sharing that as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Like I said already, we're doing the Q&A at the end, so if you've got any questions that you think of throughout the webinar, then feel free to pop those in, and we should have enough time to get through everything. But if there's any that we can't get to, then we'll catch up with you afterwards to make sure we answer those questions for you. So just to introduce myself quickly, so I'm Jack Cunningham. I'm account manager for the EMEA region here at Tenzing. I'm also our Teradici sales specialist. So Tenzing, we're a solely focused thin and zero client vendor. Our global headquarters are in the USA, but we have an EMEA head office here in the UK. So from the UK, we've got a full sales, support, and a shipping team that ship out Teradici devices as well. We were founded back in 2003, and we've been a Teradici vendor since 2009. So we've got over 10 years experience working alongside Teradici. So what does our partnership involve? Well, we sell a range of Tera 2 hardware, and these contain the PCoIP Tera 2 chipset. So we have host cards in dual or quad display options. We do have optional fiber on those as well. And then a range of zero clients, again, dual and quad display, options of DisplayPort and DVI, some with smart card readers, optional Visa mountings, quite a flexible range there. We do offer free 30-day demos on these, so if that's something you're interested in, then feel free to reach out to me after the webinar, and I'll be more than happy to help qualify the best units for your requirements and get some sent out for you. When you purchase Tera 2 devices through Tenzing, they do come with a 3-year subscription to Teradici software. So with the host card, this is the cloud access software. Through this, you get access to firmware updates, software support, PCoIP manager, access to features on the roadmap before general release, and the Teradici brokering for host cards as well. It's a really simple process. Just go to the Teradici website and fill out the form there with the details that I've got on this slide, and they'll get those licenses sent out to you. Again, if you're not sure on what to do with this once you've purchased devices, then feel free to reach out to myself or someone at Teradici, and we'll be more than happy to help get that set up for you. And finally, we do sell these all access subscription plans separately as well. So if your free year with host cards on the cloud access has come to an end and you're looking to extend that, or you'd like to use cloud access or cloud access plus as a standalone product, then we can supply those for you. We do also offer trials of the cloud access software between ourselves and Teradici. So again, if that's something that you'd like to give a go, then feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be able to set up a trial for you. So that's really the end of my kind of brief overview of Tenzing and our partnership with Teradici. I'll now hand you over to Andrew at Teradici, who'll go into a bit more detail on the technology behind these products, and specifically their applications with remote working. So over to you, Andrew.
Excellent, and thank you, Jack, for that introduction. So this is going to cover off Teradici here now. So what is Teradici about, and what do we do? So ultimately, our aim is to help organizations visualize remote workstations to endpoints, to remote endpoints. But whilst doing that, giving users what we refer to as an under-the-desk experience. So users, just because a workstation has been removed from under their desk and is out residing in a data center or in the public cloud, there should really be no reason why they don't still have that under the desk experience. And that message has slightly changed over the last 4 to 6 weeks. It's not just about removing the workstation from under the desk and putting it into a data center or into the cloud. It's also allowing remote workers to dial into their workstation that is still sitting under the desk, because obviously under the current lockdown scenarios globally, that a lot of users are having to work from home now. So we do a lot of work around that, and that's really what we're about. You know, it's our bread and butter. It's as a company, it's all we do. So you know, we are dedicated to ensuring that we deliver the best experience to the users and to you as IT administrators, and to as a whole to a company. So we do that, and we've done that by developing our PCoIP protocol. So PCoIP protocol it's a display protocol. Effectively, what we do is we take images being produced by a remote workstation, we encode them, we compress them, we encrypt them, and then we fire them across the wire, whether that be a local area network, wide area network, or public internet, to a secure endpoint. And at that secure endpoint, then decompresses, de-encodes, de-encrypts the imagery and the images, and presents that to the user. And that endpoint, as Jack has highlighted, can be either a physical endpoint, so a 10Zig0 client, or it can be a software client. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the software client, and how that can help, certainly in today where, you know, a lot of lockdown environments where shipping of items is a little bit difficult at the moment. So what separates Teradici and what makes Teradici a little bit different, I guess, from other protocols and other ways of doing things? So we do things at a host level. So everything we do is host rendering. So this allows us to look at we're looking at a pixel level. So we're looking at the frame buffer and the pixels that are being generated within the frame buffer of the GPUs. And we are then scraping those pixels out of there. This allows us to be operating system independent, so we support Windows and Linux operating systems. And it also allows us to work with any application, because the application is sitting above the OS, and then we are talking at a pixel level down below the OS effectively. So what we do is, as well, and it's worth talking about this a little bit more, is that when we look at the image, we don't see the image as just one image. We see it and we look at from a multi-codec point of view. We look at the imagery and we say, is this image, does it contain text? Does it contain video? Does it contain graphics? And we use our own codexes to ensure that we can effectively deliver the best experience. And when we talk about the best experience, for us, the best experience is we will build to lossless where required. So we can give true color accuracy. We can deliver a true user lossless experience to a user who is remoting to their workstation. And we also connect that with bandwidth optimization. So the product out of the box does what we refer to as dynamic network adaptation. So our protocol will always look at the network availability and the capability of that network and deliver the best image experience possible. So it's just worth touching on this as well, because it's a question that will always get asked, is, you know, what are the bandwidth requirements of PCoIP? There are a lot of factors that affect bandwidth. So again, some of the factors, we support up to 4 monitors. So is the user using 4 monitors, 2 monitors? Are they looking at full screen 4K video playback? Are they just looking at static graphics, like for example this PowerPoint presentation? But we will always look at the so we will always deliver to the best that the network is capable of delivering. So if somebody's connecting into a remote workstation and they're connecting in over a very poor network connection, then ultimately their experience is not going to be that great. So there are 2 things that ultimately that affect the experience of using a remote display protocol: the underlying network and the latency. So with Teradici, with PC over IP, it is designed all around delivering the best image quality, but also delivering the best interactivity. So we do support low latency devices like Wacom tablets, even connecting in remotely. However, the challenge can be sometimes with those sort of devices is they are required to have low latency. And typically what we see is that really should be something around sort of less than 20 milliseconds. When you start getting above that, then artists and the users start to notice a lag. And we do have some built-in technology around that, where we can locally terminate the rendering of the movement directly onto the local monitor, rather than having to send it up and then back down again. And when we talk about sending information back up and down, remember that all we're sending now is pixels. No data leaves the data center, so it's highly secure. The only pixels we're sending at any one time are the pixels that are changing. And also, every time we send those pixels, we're fully encrypting them to AES 256. So from a security point of view, end-to-end, a very, very secure environment to be working with. And we support connecting into workstations under the desk. We support connecting into workstations that are racked and stacked into a data center. We support cloud-based workstations, and we support virtualized infrastructure as well. So a very broad selection of host environments that we support. So a quick history of Teradici, and I won't dwell on this slide too long. We were formed back in 2004. 2007 released our first products. 2009 we were baked into and selected by VMware and baked into VMware View, VMware Horizon. 2014 selected by AWS for their desktop as a service, which is now known as Workspaces. 2016 worked very closely with Microsoft for delivering their public cloud enhanced workstations. 2017 we launched our cloud access software to address the market where people were going for more virtualized environments, and we're also moving to the public cloud. 2018 launched our own broker, Cloud Access Manager, and also started working with AWS and Google more on their high-end workstations. And in 2019 was selected by Avid for delivering of remote workstations for their Media Composer. Also launched enhancements with our PCoIP Ultra enhancements, and also became Nutanix ready as well if you're using any of their hyper-converged infrastructure. So very positive history of the Teradici. We've got about 13 million users globally using our technology, of which about 3 million plus of zero clients connected, and we cover all verticals, so healthcare, finance, government, education, media and entertainment, any vertical really where users or organizations are looking to deliver a perfect user experience, be that things like color accuracy, be that text, be that video content. That's where our sweet spot is, and that's where we play. So this slide was really just designed to talk around where we see people in their journeys regards to workstations. So a traditional workstation sitting under the desk, still a lot of organizations, and we've realized actually with the current COVID pandemic going on that there are, most of the inquiries that we're getting today around about how do we get users that have got a workstation under their desk in the office, how do we get them remotely connecting into that? And we can talk about that as well. We also support private data centers, and this is traditionally where we saw people moving. They were moving their traditional workstations from under the desk into private data centers. And the reason for that was twofold. One, we saw a lot of people doing it from a security point of view, to lock down the workstations in a secure environment. And secondly, actually to give the users a better user experience from the point of view of, if you don't have a heavy, powerful workstation producing a lot of noise, producing a lot of heat sitting under the desk, you can actually create a lovely office environment. And we have customers that now have moved all their workstations out of the design floors, and you walk in there and it's just pure silence. It's a really nice working environment. We also then saw, rather than just racking and stacking workstations, we then saw the move to virtualizing the estate and leveraging the power of modern workstations to give you a better return on investment. And that's where you then use something like cloud access software. And then we've also seen now people starting to move to the public cloud, be it just for bursting into the public cloud, be it for DR, or indeed spinning up workstations to give them, when they bring on new staff, rather than having a upfront capex, they're actually using the cloud from an OpEx point of view. So, and it doesn't matter where you are in this journey, whether you've still got workstations under the desk, you've got racked and stacked workstations, you've got virtualized workstations, you've got public cloud. Teradici can connect all of these disparate locations together and allow users to access them remotely. So how do we deliver our technology? So we deliver it in two formats. We deliver it, obviously Jack has talked about this at the start, and we've worked for a long time with Tenzig using their hardware solution. So you would, for example, install a workstation card into a workstation, and then you just feed the output of the graphics card into the workstation card. We then do the encoding on the card, so we're offloading it off the workstation, and then we just squirt it out across the internet, across the network to a secure endpoint, which typically would be a zero client. And for those of you who don't know what a zero client is, effectively a zero client is a stateless device. It's the most secure endpoint you can get on the market today. And the reason for that is the only thing that is inside the zero client is a PC over IP Teradici chip. There's no operating system, there's no disk drive, there's no memory, there is no moving parts, there's no fans, there's nothing inside there. So the minute power is lost to that, it is just a dumb piece of plastic. So if you want to have secure environment where there is a risk, then we see a lot of this being used in the military, a lot of this in high secure studios. You can send somebody home with that, and they have nowhere, there's nothing they can do with it. They can't install any further software on it. They can't, the attack vectors are significantly reduced. There's just no way it can be attacked. So obviously that's something that Tenzig do with their zero clients, but also, as I talked about, software, and so our software client, that allows us to effectively install either a host agent onto a physical workstation or a virtualized workstation or a cloud workstation. And then it allows us to then have a software client for the users that they can install onto either a Windows, Linux or Mac machine, and they can gain access to those workstations. They can also, with the software client, gain access to a workstation that has a workstation card in it, and vice versa. A zero client can connect to a virtual or physical workstation that has our software client installed on it. So you can, for a better word, cross-pollinate between the two technologies. The underlying technology across all of these is PC over IP. So, but let's just delve a little bit more into cloud access software. So cloud access software effectively allows you to deploy Windows and Linux-based desktops. It's a seamless high-performance experience for the users. So as I said, an under-the-desk experience. It's ultra secure. We've touched on that with the AES 256 encryption, and it's a lightweight environment. It doesn't require a huge number of servers at the back end. It's a very light, easy to install solution that you can get up and running within a day. So you can get users remoting in very, very quickly. We talked about in a previous slide that within 2019, last year, we launched our ultra features. So these are enhancements to the protocol, and I wanted to cover off what those enhancements can deliver to you today. So every software, when you're working with software to software, so you're using cloud access software, you're using a software client connecting to a software host, then you have the ultra enhancements already available to you, and they can be turned on. And what they deliver is it allows us now to deliver 4K ultra high definition, high frame rate content. It allows us also, we've expanded out to multi-codec architecture, so we can now also use NVIDIA's NVENC encoding, so we can offload the encoding away from the CPU to the GPU. And there's certain instances where that's a really good thing to do, things like rendering. Rendering typically will consume CPUs 100% normally, and sometimes from a software encoding point of view, we can get squeezed out to the side, whereas what we can do now is we can actually offload that to the GPU and do the encoding on the GPU. With the Ultra, it allows us to actually efficiently scale across multiple cores. So we use the AVX2 command sets, which means now, rather than being limited to just 8 CPUs where we are with just standard PC over IP, with Ultra, we can actually now scale to unlimited number of cores. So it really is building a foundation for the next generation of features that we're going to be bringing in. And as I said, Ultra is available to all cloud access software subscribers. It's no extra cost. It's in there. The enhancements in there. You just select which enhancements you want. So this is a view of and I'll let your eyes adjust to this quickly, but we'll talk our way through this. This is a view of the architecture, and this actually goes back to the original point about easy to deploy from an architectural point of view. So I'll just talk you through this. So what we've got here is you might have an on-prem environment, you might have a public cloud environment, you might have a hybrid mix of that. So what we can see from here is that we may have virtualized estate, we may be using hyper-converged, and again, we also might have non-virtualized workstations as well. And we can connect using, we have a mobile client, and when I say mobile client, I talk about tablets. So, and we support Android and Mac tablets. So you could have users just connecting in to their remote workstations on tablets. We can also use it through using our Zero clients and our Fin clients. So we use that using the 10Zig Zero client connecting through to any one of these locations. Or we can come in via our software client that can sit on Apple or Windows or Chrome, and also Linux as well. So we support Linux, a software client, we have a Chrome client, we have a Windows client, and we have a Mac client. And they will connect using PC over IP through the encrypted pixels to any one of these workstations. So it doesn't really matter where the endpoint, where the host resides, the user can connect to it. And we can also broker that connection through our Cloud Access Manager, which is the broker I talked about that is included and complementary within the solution. So that's a broad level overview, but how does that look from actually from a, I guess, a schematic, a diagrammic point of view for an on-premise infrastructure? So if you've got, and let's talk about users where you have your current workstation sitting under the desk or they're sitting in a data center. How do you now give users access remotely into those? So traditionally what you would do is you'd have your internal client sitting here. They would connect either via a Zero client or a software client. They would make a connection. It's basically a PC over IP establishment connection to our Cloud Access connector, which sits on a Linux server. That basically then calls out to our licensing server and says, is it licensed? Yes, it is. Fantastic. You can use the broker if you want to, but you don't need to. But let's say you're using the broker, then the broker will then say, okay, is it licensed? Yes, it is. What workstations does this user have access to? And the user will then be presented with those workstations. And then they create the connection, and then it's a one-to-one connection. The PC over IP session goes directly from the client to the workstation. Nothing leaves into the outside world. This is the PC over IP session happening here. And it's very similar for users. So from a remote user point of view, they have a number of ways they can connect. You could just give them a VPN connection onto your network and then connect directly through to a workstation. Or if you want to use our broker and our Cloud Access Manager, then all they do is they create the initial session to make sure they're authorized. Once they're authorized, then there is a one-to-one session created through our security gateway out to the workstation. And that's how a remote user will dial in. Very similar if you're using public cloud. Again, remote users connecting, and you'd create our Cloud Access Security Gateway on the remote cloud infrastructure, and then the users connecting via that, and then they have a one-to-one connection. And again, if you're working in a hybrid cloud environment, and again, a little bit of eye candy here for those who like diagrams. So what you have here is you have a public cloud infrastructure on-prem. So this is a hybrid environment here. You would have a Cloud Access connector located in both locations. And again, there's no licensing for the Cloud Access connector. You can have as many of those as you like. The way we license is on per concurrent users. And again, you might have users coming in remotely or coming in internally and connecting to any one of these workstations. So what does Cloud Access software give you? And we'll just go through a quick summary here for you. But it allows us to deliver 4K ultra high definition experience out to remote workstations. We have a support, as we touched on before, for low latency devices such as Wacom tablets, 3D mice. We support Linux and Windows operating systems at a host level. We support on-prem, public and hybrid clouds. It's fully encrypted end-to-end. A wide selection of endpoint access, so Zero clients, software clients, Windows, Mac, Linux, Chrome, tablets, You can have a standard or graphics use case, and we'll touch on that on the next couple of slides. And we can support up to 4 monitors. So the way, and Jack has talked about this, so the way that we license our product, it's a subscription-based license. So you buy it on number of concurrent users connecting through to your workstations. So you might have an estate of 50 workstations. You install our host software on all those 50 workstations, but you might only have, let's say, 20 to 30 users dialing in. There shows my age. You might have 20 to 30 users connecting in. Once they connect in, if you've only got 20 users connecting, it's a 20 user license, and that's it. And we have 2 subscription plans. There is our cloud access, which is for typically standard VDI users, what I would call as knowledge workers. So those people that may be doing a lot of work on Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoints, etc. They want a good user experience. They want a full fidelity experience as they would normally have with their normal laptop. That would be our cloud access subscription. And then if you've got applications typically where they need a dedicated GPU, so VFX, video editing, etc., then that's where you'd use our cloud access plus, because that does require, and that will go in, as I mentioned earlier, into the frame buffer and scrape out the pixels from there. So that's the 2 subscription plans. Just to give you a quick summary of the PC over IP advantages, text clarity. So the way that we deliver, everything we do is built into lossless. So we can support Microsoft ClearType, and we support Adobe TrueType. And in fact, actually, we've just made some announcements this week with Adobe that from an Adobe point of view, if you're looking to use any of their applications, such as Photoshop, from a remote perspective, then they recommend PC over IP as a way of doing that. Color accuracy, and apologies the fact it's spelled the US way. So again, it's very interesting here is we support 444 from a color point of view. So we built a lossless, we deliver true color, whereas a lot of protocols are based on H.264. With H.264, you're typically losing 12 million colors. So where you need users to have full color fidelity, then PC over IP is the only option for you. Again, we talk about, we deliver distortion-free graphics because we can build to lossless. Dynamic network adaptation. Again, we will deliver the best experience that the network will allow us to do. We support multi-codec. And this efficient multi-score scaling allows us to deliver a very, very efficient way of delivering the protocol from the host down to the end client. So that is a very high-level view of the protocol. What I wanted to do actually is just give you a user experience, if I may, just to show you how a user would actually experience it. So this is going to be interesting. You should be seeing my main screen still. So what I'm sitting on a Mac here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect into a Windows workstation. So all the user would have on their machine is they would have our PC over IP client. They simply click on that, fires it up. If I've got access to multiple workstations, then I would be presented here with a list of multiple workstations that I would then select which one I want to connect to. But I'm just connecting through to a workstation I have access to. Then I'm asked for my credentials, and again, so this is we're connecting through with Active Directory. Got my password there for a second. So this is now just connecting through, authenticating, and then connecting through to the remote workstation. So what we're seeing here now is, what you're seeing on my screen now is a connection into a remote workstation. What you'll just see now as well is I can adjust the size of the screen that I want, and it auto scales to that. I have the ability, if I want to, I can change in and I can go to full screen. But just before I do that, what I just want to show you is I can now move my mouse from here into the workstation. That's moving that around on the remote workstation. I can then come straight back to my desktop, and I don't know what we got here. Let's just look at Matt. Let's look at the bin. I can open up the bin. So I'm interacting with my local desktop and I'm interacting with my remote workstation. And for me, I appreciate we're going across GoToMeeting, but there is no delay for me switching between those two machines. I'm just going to flick up now. So what we also want to do is I just want to show you where this workstation is located. So I'm actually connecting into a workstation that is located in Dublin. So this is actually sitting in on a public cloud provider, and we're connecting to this remote workstation. So just from a user point of view, I'm just going to give you an example of an application running. So I'm just going to fire up Blender. My caveat to this is I do not know how to use Blender. So we just got Blender in here, and I can interact with Blender however I want to. There is no lag for me, no latency at all. I can set it going. If I now want to go into full screen, it will just rescale up to full screen. We're now sitting in full screen. And I can just stop that when I want to. I still have the ability, even though I'm in full screen here at the moment and connecting through to that Windows workstation, I still also do have the ability to go back into my Mac and bring up whatever I want to bring up. So just close Blender down. Also just going to fire up while we're in here. So also what we give you as well with the protocol is the ability to see what's actually happening with the PC over IP session. As I've obviously said, we out of the box dynamically adapt to the network, but actually sometimes it's difficult to understand what that network connection is actually doing. So I can actually just connect to this session, and this is all stuff that's complementary within the solution as well. And what I can do when I'm connected to this session, I can start to look at session statistics, easy for me to say, where I can look at what the bandwidth requirements are. So if we now just bring up a video, so I'm just going to run Big Buck Bunny there in the background. So that's just streaming down to me, and we can start to look at bandwidth requirements. We can look at things like what frame rate are we delivering. We can start to look at what's the round trip latency. So if we have a user that might be complaining, saying, "Oh, actually, do you know what? I'm starting to get it's starting to drag a little bit. The mouse isn't working, isn't very responsive." We can look at the round trip latency of their session to then say, "Well, hang on a second. We can see actually that your latency is now, as we can see here, it's jumped up to 22." And it may be that you can then start to highlight areas where, let me just turn that sound down. You might want to highlight areas where, for example, oh, it happens every day at 3 o'clock. Okay, your son's just come off, your child's just come off school, homeschool learning. They just fired up the Xbox, whatever it might be. There's lots of things that can affect the session. We try and adapt where possible. But just want to give you an idea here of, you can look at packet loss. Again, this can have an effect on the, if you've got a network that is starting to lose a lot of packets. And we typically recommend that it should stay below 0.05%, I believe it is. Once you start getting above that, you might start to see a little bit of a challenge, and then you can start to look at where that packet loss is coming from. But we give you a lot of statistics you can dial into. So from my perspective, that's sort of really coming to the end of the Teradici PC over IP part of this webinar. Jack, I'm not sure, are we opening this up to questions now?
Yeah, so we've got a few questions that have come through already. So yeah, I suppose we've got some time. We can start working through them.
Okay, where are those questions? Where do I see them?
So I've got a couple of questions that came in beforehand. So first of all, someone's asked, can we integrate with Server 2016?
I think the answer is hang on, Michael, do we support 2016?
Yes, 2016 and 2019.
Yep, there you go, 2016 and 2019. So tick the box for that one.
Okay, and someone's asked, what's the best PC over IP solution for editing offline from a Mac OS ecosystem?
Okay, so Okay, so we as Teradici, as a workstation card, and our software does not support the Mac as a host. There is a solution on the market, and I'm on Tenzig. I mean, it's not going to affect Tenzig. So there is a solution on the market which is by a company called Amulet Hotkey, where what they do is they take a workstation card, stick it in an external box, and you can then plug that into your Mac. But the workstation cards on their own and our software client does not support the Mac operating system.
Okay. Someone's asked as well if the presentation is going to be available at the end. I think they weren't able to join at the start. So yeah, for anyone who wasn't there at the beginning, we'll be making this available at the end. It'll be on Teradici's website, and we'll be sharing that as well. A few more questions as well that have come in. Someone's asked, can you transfer files between your desktop and the remote machine?
Okay, so no, you can't, and there's a very good reason for that. That's about security. So the idea is all the way transferring from the remote desktop here, all that's being sent across the internet, all that's being created across the wire is just the pixels of this screen. There is the function for copy and paste from let's say standard, but not copy and paste the whole document. Let's say within a Word document, you want to copy and paste some text. However, by default, that is turned off. But as an administrator, you can turn that function on. But ultimately, the reason that Teradici has been designed is one is about image quality and about security. And we certainly find in a lot of environments where you're talking about, studio work, the last thing you want is to actually have the ability for somebody to copy them. So if I'll give you an example. If we go into here, if I try and take this file and drag it, I cannot drag it anywhere. It will not leave that environment. So it's from that point of view, totally secure.
Excellent. Okay. So we've got kind of on-premise workstation will be set up with a workstation card to allow both on-premise and off-premise access.
Yeah, you can do it two ways. So it's fair to say, yes, you can use a workstation card and put that into your workstation, but you don't need to have a workstation card. You can use cloud access software on its own. So you can install depending on the operating system and the GPU you're using. But if your host is Linux and you're using professional grade NVIDIA graphics cards, so Teslas, Quadros and above, RTX 4000s and above, then you can install on the Linux operating system, you can install cloud access software and connect that using cloud access software. If you're using a Windows operating system, then actually with Windows we support also consumer grade GPUs. So again, you might have RTX 2000 or you might have GTX 1080i. Then you can actually install our cloud access software on that workstation and connect that externally as well. So there's pros and cons of using a workstation card versus using the host client. And we can certainly talk to that offline on individual use case-by-case basis.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. What else have we got? Can you run multiple PC-over-IP sessions on the same client machine to multiple host machines?
Yes. So you can. So each PC-over-IP session is a one-to-one session. So a host can only have one connection at a time going into it. It's not multi-session host. It's a single session host. However, on my client, on my endpoint, I could fire up another PC-over-IP session and connect into a different host. So I can go. So if that makes sense.
Yes.
A host can only have a single connection, but a client can connect to multiple hosts.
Excellent. Okay. And
in fact, actually, we have that. An example of that is we have a well-known car manufacturer where they use our technology in their autonomous vehicles for testing, where what they have is their engineers sit in the back of the car connecting through to 16 different virtual machines whilst on one Surface Pro. And all they do is they just have lots of Teradici client sitting there, and then they can then just connect into each individual one and just see the results they're getting from the telemetry from the cars as they're driving around automatically.
Brilliant. Okay. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get through all this. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but we'll try and get through a couple more. Look. Can you utilise custom layouts for Wacom tablets with custom control areas?
Michael can answer. I believe the answer is yes, because ultimately we just see the Wacom tablet as a USB device connected through. Michael, do you got any more comments on that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. We see it as a USB device, so if that's something you can set in the software of the Wacom tablet, it should work.
Yeah.
But we are limited to what type of Wacom tablet you use. We don't support all of them.
Yeah, and we have it on our website. There's a list of Wacom tablets. And actually, while you're looking for the next question, Jack, I just want to go back to the file transfer. If there is a requirement to actually transfer files from the remote workstation to the local workstation, then we have the ability to, the user could plug in a USB device into their local machine and mount it onto the remote workstation. Again, that is a feature that is turned off for security reasons. But you could also even lock it down to the, I think, is it the PID? The ID of the device. So you could have users saying, okay, here, user, this is a company approved USB device. You're allowed to plug it in, and then you can map it into the device up here.
Okay. Another one, are there any plans to enable 2 remote clients to connect to the same host PC?
No.
No. Okay.
And when I say no, I'm talking about anything within the next 12 months.
Okay.
I'm not going to sell you dreamwear.
Can you send the touch information from touchscreens to the session?
So when we're talking about Wacom, currently we do not support touchscreen. So for example, the Wacom Cintiqs, we support them in pen mode only at the moment, but it is something that we are actively working on. But touchscreen, that's for Wacom. If you're talking about touchscreen as in touchscreen monitors, no, it's keyboard and mouse.
Okay. All right. I think that's about all we've got time for. It looks like the time is running out. So there's a few questions we couldn't get around to. So we'll pick them up and we'll follow up with you on those questions that we were unable to get to today. But yeah, from my point of view, I think that's everything that I wanted to go through. I don't know if there's any kind of following points you want to go through, Andrew.
No, not at all. Just really appreciate everybody's time. As I said, Jack's your go-to point of contact from a Tenzing perspective. If there are questions that we haven't answered, then certainly we'll have a look at those afterwards and get back to you on that. Yeah, as I said, so really appreciate your time. We're here to help when and if required.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thank you for joining, everyone, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.